The Orioles sweep the White Sox, and that doesn't show me a whole lot. The Orioles sweep the Mariners on the road. Now we're talking. I'll recap the best series of the year for the O's coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Friday, June 6th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap another Orioles sweep as they win all 3 games in Seattle and have now won 6 games in a row as they are trying their best here in June to get their season back on track. I'll get you the 5 things you need to know from all 3 games this week in the Pacific Northwest, and we'll talk about some great starts from the likes of Zack Efflin and Tomoyuki Sugano, a fantastic bullpen performance, and Adley Rutschman finally being Adley Rutschman once again. That's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So it is an Orioles sweep. Thank you for your patience and still sticking with the show this week. As I explained a couple of times, when the Orioles are out on the West Coast and playing these, 9:40 p.m. starts on Tuesday and Wednesday night, and I got to get up early for work the next day, it is pretty much impossible for me to stay up for the whole game, record, edit, post an episode, get to bed, and still be okay at work. So I still gave you some other episodes. Make sure to go and check out Wednesday and Thursday's pods. We tried to break down the struggles for Adley Rutschman, Heston Kjerstad, and Ryan Mountcastle this year. We took another look back at the Orioles offseason now that we're 2+ months into this season. But today, because the O's did have the day game on Thursday, I am able to recap that one and recap all 3 games. What was a fantastic Orioles series, sweeping the Mariners on the road to win 6 games in a row. So let's start with the Tuesday night victory. Final score from that one, Orioles 5 and Mariners 1 in game 1 of this 3-game set. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from that one. And the first thing you need to know is Colton Cowser returned to the Orioles lineup with a bang. He was activated off the 60-day injured list on Monday and was in the lineup Tuesday in Seattle, batting 6th and playing center field for his first game since March 30th, which was the 4th game of the year for the Orioles up in Toronto against the Blue Jays. He broke his thumb diving into first base, trying to beat out an infield hit, and he has been out since then. Now, he only had 1 hit in his first game back, but it was a big one. A leadoff solo home run in the 6th inning off of former Oriole, his former teammate Eduard Bizardo, that put the O's up 3-1, hit it 374 feet to left field, little Oppo Taco at 102 off the bat for Cowser. And obviously awesome to have his bat back in the lineup, what we saw from that big insurance run he gave them in the 6th. But I think even with the offensive struggles the Orioles have had, and many of them due to the injuries to guys like Cowser, I think it's even bigger to get his defense back in the outfield. Now, he started in center field for a couple of these games, and eventually we'll see him move back over to left when Cedric Mullins also comes off the injured list. But with the amount we've seen the likes of Jorge Mateo and Heston Kjerstad and Ryan O'Hearn in the outfield, it is fantastic to have Cowser, who frankly should have won the Gold Glove in left field last season, be back patrolling the outfield for the Orioles. And of course, nice to have him hitting home runs back in the lineup as well. Second thing you need to know from Tuesday's game is that Adley Rutschman had his best game in a while. And you're going to notice a pattern on today's episode. We're going to be talking a lot about Adley Rutschman, but he goes 3 for 5 on Tuesday night in his homecoming. Of course, from Oregon, went to Oregon State, had a bunch of family in the stands for all 3 games of this series, but 3 singles and 2 hard hit balls for Adley on Tuesday. And it was just his 3rd 3-hit game of the season, his first since May 16th. And Andy Kusko wrote about in the Baltimore Banner this week how Adley is kind of trying to rid himself of this toe tap load he has going on with his front foot, especially when hitting from the left side, that he feels like was causing him troubles. He's focused on a little bit more to try to get it out of his swing. He feels like his timing has been better the last couple of days because of the lack of the toe tap. And hopefully that was why he had 3 hits, and hopefully that gets him going. And I think, as we'll talk about in games 2 and 3 in this series, it may just have gotten him going. Now, the third thing you need to know from this O's win in game 1 is that the kids on this team added some big insurance runs for the Orioles in the ninth. They went into that ninth inning leading 3-1, but they were not content with the 2-run lead. Coby Mayo leads off the ninth inning with a single, and then Heston Kjerstad delivers one of his bigger swings in a while. An RBI double as he smacks the ball into the right center field gap. Really good base running from Mayo to score from first to put the Orioles up 4-1. It was a 2-hit game for Kirststad, who had a single earlier, his first multi-hit game since May 17th. And it was the first multi-hit game of the season for Heston Kjerstad that included at least one extra base hit with that double in the ninth inning. And Heston certainly needed something to get him going, and that double may have been just that. And then Jackson Holliday added on an RBI single, made it 5-1, and it gave the Orioles a lot of breathing room to get those 2 runs in the top of the ninth heading into the bottom of the ninth inning. And it really was part of a complete team offensive performance. Now, that the 5 runs you put up, that's a good number. That's not an explosive number that's going to make you say, hey, this is one of the Orioles' better offensive games. But they had 13 hits. They had 19 hard hit balls, which was a season high for the O's. Every starter had at least 1 hard hit ball. Gunnar, Jackson, and Cowser all had 3 apiece. And the Orioles only struck out 4 times in this game. And it is the 3rd time this year they've struck out only 4 times. 3 times is the record low. They did that back on April 9th. Now, this doesn't always mean you're going to do well. That game, they struck out only 3 times on April 9th, was a 9-0 loss to the Diamondbacks. So again, it doesn't always mean you're going to have a good offensive approach in general, but really impressive offensive performance as a whole by the Orioles on Thursday. They got to George Kirby. He hasn't been great coming off the IL, but they knocked him out after 5 innings. Scary moment. He took a Ramon Arias line drive off his face. Luckily, seems to be okay. And then they got some runs off the Seattle bullpen to kind of pull away as well. But speaking of the Orioles pitching, the 4th thing you need to know from Tuesday night's win is that Tomoyuki Sugano was fantastic once again. He goes at least 7 innings for the 4th time this season, and for the 4th time this year, allows 1 earned run or fewer. Sugano's final line from Tuesday night: 7 innings of 1-run ball on 5 hits with 5 strikeouts, a walk, and a home run allowed on 90 pitches for the right-hander, who now has a 3.04 ERA in his first big league season. We continue to talk about just what a pickup he has been for the Orioles. He's allowed 3 earned runs or less in 11 of his 12 starts this year. And the other one, he allowed 4 earned runs. So basically all 12 of his starts, he has given the Orioles a legitimate chance to win. And that's really all you can ask for a guy you give a 35-year-old, you give a 1-year, $13 million deal who's pitching in the big leagues for the first time. And the beginning of the start for Sugano was not really clean. He allowed a solo home run to Rowdy Tellez in the 2nd inning that tied the game, and he had thrown 38 pitches through 2 innings. That's not efficient for any pitcher, but especially for Sugano, who is usually super efficient. That was pretty tough for him. But then starting in the 3rd, he started to roll a little bit, started to become his usual efficient self, and just went heavy on the splitter usage, 40% usage. It was by far his most used pitch on Tuesday. He commanded it pretty well. And the big difference between this and his last start, when he gave up 3 runs over 5 1/3 against the Cardinals, is that his sweeper was much better. He got 5 whiffs on 9 swings against that sweeper, and it's because he was able to throw it from a strike to a ball to some right-handed hitters in this Mariners lineup who tend to chase out of the zone. And his issue in that St. Louis start, when he gave up 3 runs in the first 2 innings against the Cardinals, is that he was throwing a lot of sweepers to the right-handers, but they were hanging in the middle of the plate, and they were smacking the sweepers around the ball yard to take an early lead against Sugano. He got burned in that one. He made an adjustment in this one and pitched far, far better to lead the Orioles to a victory. And the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 5-1 win over the Mariners to open this series on Tuesday night is the bullpen came in and locked it down. Brian Baker pitched the 8th with a 3-1 lead, got himself in a little trouble with back-to-back 1-out singles to put runners on the corners, but facing the middle of the Mariners order, he gets Jorge Polanco to pop up and then gets a huge strikeout of Julio Rodriguez on a fastball up and in at 97. He gets him to swing through it to get out of a jam. Baker fired up. And then Felix Bautista did pitch in the bottom of the 9th. Thought he might not, because the Orioles added those 2 insurance runs in the top half, made it a 4-run lead, made it not a save situation. But, the Orioles had the off day Monday, plus Felix did not pitch Sunday, so he was rested, and Tony Mansolino did not want to take any chances. Felix goes out there, and again, it was a laborious weekend, right? We talked about this on Monday's episode, how he threw 29 pitches in his save on Friday, and then the Orioles, for some reason, brought him back on Saturday, and he threw 23 more pitches in that save. So he really needed a quick outing, and that's what he got. 1, 2, 3 on 10 pitches to lock down a 5-1 Orioles win, making it 4 in a row at that point, their longest winning streak of the season, and a really, really good and impressive late night win for the Orioles. But they were not done. They were looking for a series victory as they headed into play on Wednesday, and they played a fairly similar low-scoring game and once again came out with the W. I'll tell you how they did it in Wednesday night's win coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Trade Coffee. Whether you're gearing up for back-to-back meetings, shuttling kids back and forth to activities, or tackling an endless to-do list, your morning sets the tone for it all. And that's why it should start with the perfect cup of coffee, crafted just for you. Enter Trade. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got a roast that you will love. And you can take Trade's quiz. It only takes a minute, and they'll send you a first bag of coffee that is spot on for what you want. And their prices, they're comparable to grocery store brands, but the flavor is on a whole nother level. And right now, Trade is exclusively offering our customers 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/lockedonmlb for 50% off your 1-month trial. One more time, that is drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. So for the Orioles, they got the win on Tuesday night to open up this series, make it 4 W's in a row, and then they got another one on Wednesday. Final score in Game 2 of this set, the Orioles 3 and the Mariners 2, and I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from that Orioles Wednesday night victory. And the first thing you need to know is Heston Kjerstad, who, got himself a nice big RBI double in the game in the 9th inning on Tuesday, had even a much, much bigger hit to really win the game on Wednesday. Kirststad, who comes up there, runners on first and second and 2 outs, Orioles trailing 2-1 in the top of the 7th inning. And if you thought his RBI double in the 9th Tuesday was big, how about the 2-run go-ahead triple he hits in the 7th on Wednesday on an 0-2 cutter, just kind of ropes it down the line into the right field corner. Both runs score, and the Orioles take a 3-2 lead, the score they would win by. And funny enough, when you compare his RBI double in the 9th on Tuesday to the 2-run triple in the 7th on Wednesday, he was facing 2 different pitchers, a couple of right-handers out of the Mariners bullpen, but it was basically the exact same pitch. If you're watching here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube page, of course, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But showing a graphic here from Baseball Savant and StatCast, if you can see it right now, this is a plot of the 2 hits Kirststad had, the double on Tuesday and then the triple on Wednesday. And it may look like to you, Connor, it's supposed to be plotting 2 pitches. It looks like just 1. Well, that's because the 2 cutters he hit, the one Tuesday and the one Wednesday, were from 2 different pitchers, but they were basically cutters from righties in almost the identical spot of the zone. It was a strike, but down and in the zone, Kirstad's kind of got that loopy swing that can get down there and ropes both balls into right field. Each of them huge hits. Obviously, the one on Wednesday a little bit bigger than the one on Tuesday, but still just funny that, the Mariners got beat with that pitch on Tuesday. Different pitcher on Wednesday, but they go to the same exact offering on 0-2, and he crushes one into the corner to give the Orioles the lead. And just awesome to see Kirststad come up with that swing. It was his first 0-2 2-out hit of the year and only his second hit on an 0-2 count all season. Just his 4th hit of the year where there were 2 outs with runners in scoring position. And I don't know if it's going to get him going, considering, as I mentioned, both pitches were in the exact same spot, the exact same pitch type. But down and in the zone has been a big-time weak spot, not just this year, but in his entire big league career. He's hitting just 163 on balls in that area of the strike zone down and in. So good to see him go and get those twice. The unfortunate part for Kirststad is, in terms of playing time, in terms of not just Cowser coming back, but also other injured outfielders are on their way back over the next week or two, is that those 2 hits were big, and he had a couple more knocks in this series. He looked a lot better than he has over the past couple of weeks in these 3 games in Seattle, but the defense is not going to get him places. I mean, the first run that scored on Cade Povich on Wednesday was because Kirststad just didn't catch a ball down the line. And again, it's not a super easy play, but he slides for a ball down the line and just completely misses it. He takes terrible routes to balls. He gets a horrible jump. He has speed. Speed's not the issue, but he looks like he never learned how to run correctly. It's not graceful. He has no feel for playing the outfield. And this is it's not like he's a converted first baseman. This is his regular position. This is where he played at Arkansas, was as a corner outfielder. This is where he's played throughout the minors. And his defense was never good, but I am convinced it has gotten worse somehow. And he's only 26 years old. It's horrible out there. I am ready to say it. And the underlying stats and the StatCast data, the advanced metrics defensively, they all back it up. They say he's one of the worst defensive outfielders in Major League Baseball so far this year. But I'm ready to call it. This is the worst outfielder I've ever seen in an Orioles uniform. And let me tell you, I've watched a lot of Jorge Mateo, Ryan O'Hearn, Trey Mancini, Mark Trumbo, Travis Snyder, Nelson Cruz, Chris Davis, all try to play the outfield in an Orioles uniform. The only one I've ever seen look worse is Ryan Mountcastle in the outfield. Remember that experiment from 2020 and 2021? And the Orioles ended that experiment pretty quickly. And that wasn't Mountcastle's drafted position. This is where they drafted Kirststad. He's terrible out there. So if the bat starts to get going, then maybe even as the Orioles get healthier, he can DH a good amount and still help this Orioles lineup. But they even tried him at first base in the minor leagues, and he couldn't figure out that. It is just a disaster out there. Even when he does good things with the bat, he makes these plays in the outfield where, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's frustrating. As you can tell, I'm frustrated by it. Like, nothing frustrates me worse than bad defense. And it's completely unplayable. So unless these 2 hits get him red hot, he's going back to AAA at some point. You got to think. He's just, man, is he bad out there. Man, is it good to have Colton Cowser back in this lineup. Second thing you need to know from Wednesday's win is that Adley Rutschman mashed a home run in his homecoming. After 3 hits on Tuesday, only had 1 hit Wednesday despite 3 more hard hit balls, but he made his 1 hit count. A solo home run off of Emerson Hancock in the 6th inning, tied this game at 1, hit it 108.3 off the bat, traveled 415 feet. His 5th hardest hit ball that went for a hit all season. And it seems like the toe tap we talked about, the small adjustments working, the luck is turning, and nice to see Adley just really run into one. He hasn't hit a whole lot of home runs this year, so hitting one out of the ballpark, tying the game, another big moment for Rutschman. Third thing you need to know from Wednesday's win is that Cade Povich kept the Orioles in this game. Despite that rough play from Kirststad, he held the Mariners to just the 1 run in the 4th inning. And otherwise, his first 5 innings were great. Now, the final line for Povich in this game on Wednesday night, 5 1/3 innings, 2 runs on 4 hits, 5 Ks, 1 walk, no homers, and 86 pitches for the Orioles' young left-hander. But through the first 5 innings of 1-run ball, I mean, he was great. The fastball had good swing and miss to it. He was getting it over top some bats with that good riding fastball. The velocity was up on everything. The curveball velo was up 2 miles an hour from what it usually is. So maybe changed a little bit of the grip on that pitch. And he was also throwing his tighter slider more. Now, Povich basically has 2 different sliders. He has the shorter breaking regular slider, which is about 83, 84. And then he has that bigger sweeper, which has 6 more inches of left to right movement and sits at about 82 miles an hour. Now, the sweeper has generally been his go-to slider. The regular slider, he's only thrown it 3% of the time this year, only threw it 6% of the time last year. In comparison, throws the sweeper about 13% of the time. But in this start, 10 sliders versus just 1 sweeper thrown. That was the most sliders and the least sweepers he's thrown in any start in 2025. Now, some of it could be that there were only 2 hitters in the Mariners starting lineup that were left-handers on Wednesday, and the tighter slider is a pitch that works better than a sweeper against right-handed hitters when you are a left-handed pitcher. But that change in usage actually began in his last start against St. Louis. Started throwing more sliders and less sweepers. So certainly something to watch. He's still kind of going away from that new kick changeup he's been throwing, only threw 5 of them on Wednesday night, even though the Mariners had 7 righties in that order. And it's a pitch that, when it's on, has really worked for him this year against right-handed hitters since he's added it to his arsenal. But it's kind of gone away the last couple of starts. I'm somewhat confused, somewhat intrigued by Cade Povich's pitch mix over his last couple of outings. But, if he's going to keep the Orioles in the game, if he's going to give them 5 1/3 of 2-run ball, I think the O's are going to take that. And they certainly did, as it gave him a chance on Wednesday. And listen, he came back out there for the 6th, and he completely lost his command. He hit a batter, he walked a batter, he allowed an RBI single to Cal Raleigh that, at the time put the Mariners back up 2-1. Luckily, Raleigh was throwing out at second, trying to stretch it into a double. That really helped the Orioles get out of that inning in only a 2-1 game. And Manzolino got him out of there probably one batter too late, but he was rolling along and then just came out in the 6th and had absolutely nothing. And that's something that happens to Cade Povich from time to time. He just will lose it in an inning. This time it came at the end of his outing, but I think still solid stuff from him. Fourth thing you need to know from Wednesday night's win is that the Orioles bullpen came in relief of Povich, and they were tremendous. Cano came into the jam in the 6th. Runner on third, 1 out, Orioles trailing 2-1. Orioles make a really good defensive play. Ground ball to Gunnar, throws it home. Adley makes a great swipe tag. Play gets overturned on replay for an out at the plate, and Cano gets out of the 6th. Seranthony Dominguez was absolutely ridiculous in his scoreless 7th after Kirststad gave the Orioles the lead in the top half. Dominguez holds the lead. He throws 13 pitches, 5 splitters, 4 swings and misses on 4 swings against that splitter. The new splitter he has added to his arsenal has just completely changed who Dominguez is as a pitcher. He had been struggling some against left-handed hitters even before the Orioles got him from the Phillies last year. And now he has this splitter that he can trust, that he can command, and that pitch is dominating lefties. 7 of his 10 strikeouts against left-handed hitters this year have been via the splitter, which has a 68% swing and miss rate overall. That is an insane whiff rate. Felix Bautista's splitter is around 60% whiff. Dominguez is at 68. He's allowed 1 hit on that pitch, and it's got him fired up because his fastball velo is now sitting up around 99. He's put together 4 straight scoreless outings, and that's not even including the 5-out save he had in Boston right before that as well. The Orioles are really counting on Dominguez right now, and he is certainly coming up big. Then Gregory Soto came out there in the 8th to protect a 3-2 lead. He did walk a batter, but he struck out the side, and he was fired up. He got Cal Raleigh to swing through a 3-2 slider that was kind of down the middle to end the 8th inning, and Soto loved it. I love the passion we saw from really all of the Orioles relievers that got huge outs in this game on Wednesday. And then they went back to Felix Bautista for the 2nd time this week and the 3rd time this season. He pitched on a back-to-back. Now, he did only throw 10 pitches in a clean 9th on Tuesday, and he comes back out there in a 3-2 game on Wednesday, and once again, not as crisp on the second half of a back-to-back. He allowed a single, he allowed a walk, and he almost blew that save. Rowdy Tellez hit a ball deep to center field, but not enough. Jordan Adams ran it down, made the catch with 2 on and 2 out, and the Orioles held on for that 3-2 win. Just another awesome night from the bullpen. And speaking of Jordan Adams, the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 3-2 win over the Mariners on Wednesday night that clinched the series is that the defensive moves the Orioles made and Tony Manzolino made late in this game shows you they're still not quite where they want to be roster-wise. Kobe Mayo started this game at first base, and Emmanuel Rivera replaced him defensively late in this game. And then also you had Jordan Adams replacing Heston Kjerstad defensively and moving into center field. Now, Adams has also been replacing Jorge Mateo when he starts in center, but you really don't want to be in spots where you're using a defensive replacement for your center fielder and your first baseman late in games, but that's what the O's did with Rivera and Adams for Mayo and Kirststad, and sometimes for Mateo as well. Once they get Westberg, Mullins, Laureano back, those are moves they're just not going to have to make late in games because they already have a good defensive outfield out there. Maybe they'll want to do it with Mayo, but Rivera won't even kind of be around. They'll be more trusting Mayo, but it still shows you that even with Colton Cowser back in there, still some interesting pieces on this roster. And this roster, though, is going to get better as it gets healthier, and that is continuing to happen. So the Orioles, they clinch the series Wednesday, and then finally they have a regularly timed game, 3:40 Eastern time game on Thursday. All right, don't have to be sleep deprived to watch the Orioles try to go for the sweep. And they got the sweep. 6 wins in a row. How did they do it? Tell you how. Coming up after this to finish off the show. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And the NBA Finals got underway on Thursday night. As I'm recording, the Thunder have a pretty sizable lead in the second half. The Thunder are big favorites in this series, and honestly, I don't see a way that they lose this series. So even though they are big favorites on FanDuel, it might just be the smart play to go with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And if you are new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So for the O's, they had a chance to go for their second straight sweep, make it 6 straight wins on Thursday afternoon, and they did exactly that, picking up a 4-3 win over the Mariners to finish off the sweep. They've won 6 in a row, and the record's still not great, but it now sits at 25-36 through 61 games this season. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from the Orioles' 4-3 win over the Mariners on Thursday that finished off this series sweep. And the first thing you need to know is Adley Rutschman might be truly back. Yes, he was one of the 5 things to know in all 3 wins this week, and for good reason. He is swinging the bat well. The homecoming to Seattle was something that really worked out for him, it seemed, with the family and the crowd. If you feel like I've talked about him a lot in this episode, well, I have, and for good reason. 3 more hits on Thursday after he had 3 hits Tuesday. He had 2 3-hit games all year coming into this series, and then he has 2 in 3 games. And of course, the biggest swing was the game-tying home run, a 2-run shot that got into the seats in right field in the 6th to tie the game at 3, got a slider in the middle of the plate and just ripped it into right field to tie this game off of Seattle starter Bryan Woo. And just a huge, huge swing for Adley, who homers in back-to-back games. Hadn't done that since May 12th and 13th of 2024. And in this series, he was just incredible. Went 7 for 13, had the 2 home runs, just 1 strikeout. He had 8 hard-hit balls of the 12 balls that he put in play. 12 of the last 17 balls Adley has put in play have been hard hit. The last time he had 7 hits in a single series, you got to go back to April 22nd through the 24th in Anaheim against the Angels last year when he went 7 for 14 with a double. That was also an Orioles sweep. Really shows you that the Orioles go as Adley goes, and as Adley starts to heat up, all of a sudden, the O's have won 6 in a row. We've talked about how much bad luck Adley has had. We even went into it again on Wednesday's episode. I talked about him swinging more and swinging more at pitches down the middle. He did that on the home runs he hit this weekend. The balls are finally starting to bounce his way. The luck is starting to go his way. We are seeing the Adley Rutschman turnaround, I believe, here in the month of June. Second thing you need to know from Thursday's win is that Gunnar went yard as well. He goes back-to-back with Adley in the 6th, following it up with a solo shot of his own off Bryan Woo that just made it out off the top of the wall down the right field line, gave the Orioles a 4-3 lead. It had been a little while for Gunnar, who had not homered since May 18th before that solo home run on Thursday, his 8th of the season. And this was a little surprising to me, but it took until this long. This was the first time ever that Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson have gone back-to-back in a major league game. We were dreaming about a moment like that back in 2021 when they were both top prospects in this Orioles system, and now they go back-to-back for the first time ever. I believe it's just the 4th time, maybe 5th time ever that they've just simply homered. They've each homered in the same game, but to go back-to-back with those two, that's a moment we've been dreaming on, and that was certainly special to see. And they were the biggest 2 swings of the game. O's down 3-1. Adley ties it. Gunnar gives them the lead in the 6th, and they hold on to it to get that 4-3 victory. And it was coming off the bottom of the 5th where Cal Raleigh hit that 2-run homer to give the Mariners the 3-1 lead, for the Orioles to just respond immediately without any outs. Like they got a base runner, they got a Jackson walk, they got an Adley homer, they got a Gunnar homer, nobody out. Immediately they flip the inning. It's 4-3 Orioles. I mean, that was just awesome to see in this game. Third thing you need to know from Thursday is that Colton Cowser got a partial day off in this one. Talked about when he came back. This is coming off, even though it is a thumb issue, had been out for a while. He's going to get a couple of extra days off in the first couple of weeks he was back. But this one was a little odd. I'm not against it, but Cowser gets the day off. So you got Dylan Carlson in left, Jorge Mateo in center, Heston Kjerstad in right was the starting outfield. But you figure the Orioles are going to use at least one defensive replacement for that disaster of a center and right field combination, but they actually used both Jordan Adams in center and then Colton Cowser in right came in as defensive replacements. And it's not like there's no precedent for this, and Cowser being in the game absolutely made them way better on defense in right field than Heston Kjerstad would have, and certainly helps them be in a spot to win the game. But you don't usually see a main starter getting a day off, especially coming off injury and then coming in late just for defense. Now, he did end up getting a plate appearance and he struck out in the ninth inning, but something like that usually starts with, hey, we gave a regular guy the day off, but he's available off the bench. We see a spot for him to pinch hit. He pinch hits and then he stays in the game defensively. It's just a little odd to go in for defense first. And again, it was a move that made the Orioles better down the stretch in the game. So it's not a huge deal. I don't have a big problem with it. Just a little odd, something you don't see a lot. But it also reminds you that, hey, Cowser is not the only guy that's just coming back from this. Ramon Laureano, Gary Sanchez, and Jordan Westberg, all in AAA on rehab right now. They all homered in the Tides game on Thursday night. So it looks like some more guys are coming back from injury very, very soon. Fourth thing you need to know from this sweep clinching win is that Zack Efflin was his usual quality start self. A very Zack Efflin pitching line on Thursday. He goes 6 innings of 3-run ball on 8 hits, 7 Ks, no walks, and a home run allowed on 88 pitches for Efflin, who, all the runs were driven in by Cal Raleigh. It was an RBI single early in the third and then a 2-run homer in the fifth that at the time gave the Mariners a 3-1 lead. I'm sure some people are going to argue because there was a base open in both spots. Hey, Raleigh's been so hot. He's a switch hitter. You got the righty and a Rosarena on deck. You should have walked him both times. You're never going to intentionally walk a guy in the third inning. In the fifth inning, maybe, but not even really there. And Zack Efflin's a good pitcher. He's going to attack these guys. I have no problem going at him. Cal Raleigh's the number 2 hitter in the American League right now. I mean, in terms of being the MVP besides Aaron Judge, he's been absolutely incredible. He's now the major league leader in home runs with the one that he hit off of Efflin. I have no problem with the decision, but Efflin was looking better. His sweeper was good. He got 5 whiffs on 11 swings. He was attacking Julio Rodriguez and Rosarena with that pitch. It was getting chases on it outside the zone. Good story in the Baltimore Banner from Andy Kuska on Thursday about Zack Efflin and his arm slot being 2 degrees down since he came off the IL with that lat injury that caused him to miss a month. But Efflin is addressing it, and he talked about how he wants to get it back to where it normally is because when his arm slot changes, it changes how his pitches move, and it makes it harder to have good expectations and good feel of where his pitches are going to go. And that may have been the reason why his command was looking a little shaky in the past couple of starts. I had talked about it the last few Efflin starts where he wasn't terrible, but it was command. He was just losing balls arm side. Like balls were just fading to the arm side more than they ever do. I really didn't see that at all for the first time in a couple of weeks in his start on Thursday. So maybe he did correct whatever mechanical arm slot thing was going on. And it's cool that he identified it, talked about it, fixed it, and put up another quality start for the Orioles on Thursday, striking out guys, scattering hits as usual, but keeping the pitch count low, keeping the run total low, giving them a quality start, giving them a chance to win. And in this 6-game winning streak for the Orioles, this rotation, which had been such a nightmare early in the year, is the number one reason why they've done this. The Orioles rotation in the 6-game winning streak, 38 innings, 33 hits, 7 earned runs, 37 strikeouts to 6 walks. That is a 1.66 rotation ERA in these 6 games. You want to point to why the O's have turned it around? That is 100% why. And the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 4-3 win over the Mariners on Thursday that clinched their 6th consecutive victory, which a 6-game winning streak they did do once last year, never got more than 6, and clinched them also back-to-back sweeps. And the sweep of the M's is that the bullpen was nails once again, closing this one out. Quick and easy for Keegan Aiken in the 7th, 1-2-3 on 9 pitches. Andrew Kittredge, quick and easy, 1-2-3 on 10 pitches in the 8th. And then, of course, because Felix got the save in both the Tuesday and Wednesday games, he was not going to be available on Thursday. And once again, the Orioles went to Brian Baker. They did the same thing on Sunday, right? Felix had pitched Friday and Saturday. Another save situation comes up Sunday against the White Sox, 1-run game. They go to Baker and he locks it down. And they go to Baker again in this one. Now, he did allow a 2-out single, but got a strikeout of Dylan Moore to end it and get the Orioles a 4-3 win. His second save of the week and just the third of his career. It just continues an incredible season, bounce back season in relief for Brian Baker. And again, he has been the Orioles' best reliever. But I spoke about how good the rotation has been on this winning streak. The bullpen's been just as good. It's been the pitching staff as a whole that is pretty much them and Adley Rutschman kind of fully led the Orioles to win 6 games in a row. Because listen, on this winning streak, right, you think back to the Chicago series, they scored 9 runs in 3 games. Even in this series, they went out there and they scored 12 runs in 3 games. I mean, that's 4 runs per game. That's not some huge offensive output. It's because of how good the pitching has been. A 1.66 rotation ERA. The bullpen during this 6-game winning streak, 16 innings, 9 hits, 3 runs, 23 strikeouts to 7 walks. It's a 1.69 bullpen ERA. Basically just as good as the rotation has been. They've been nasty, just piling up the strikeouts with 23 punch-outs in 16 innings. Basically everybody in that pen has contributed to this stretch as well. Just kind of awesome to see the Orioles doing this and turning things around. Again, as I mentioned on Monday's episode, after they swept the White Sox, I thought never as a team looked worse in a sweep. They were mistake prone, some bad base running, some bad defense. They didn't hit well. They got enough from the starting rotation to squeak out 3 wins against one of the only teams that's been worse than them this year. But this time they went on the road against a good baseball team in the Seattle Mariners, a team that, even with these 3 losses, is still 32-29, has been playing good ball this year. And they just went into their house and just said, you guys aren't hitting here. We are not going to let it happen. And just obviously, it's only the second sweep of the year against an actual maybe playoff team, unlike the White Sox. So clearly the most impressive series of the season for the Orioles. And they're playing much better baseball. All they still need is the offense to get going. It's certainly been better, but let's see some big offensive outputs. And we might see that coming up next, because now the Orioles stay on the West Coast, and for the first time, they go to Sacramento to play at the minor league ballpark against those Athletics. The Athletics, although they did win 14-3 on Thursday over the Twins, it has not been good for the A's recently. They've done a lot of losing. They are 24-40 on the season. They give up a lot of runs, especially in their home ballpark. So this could be the perfect opportunity for the O's to get the offense going this weekend. 10:05 on Friday night, Dean Kramer for the O's. The A's are TBD on their pitching in this series. We'll see who they end up seeing. You'll see probably a combination of like Mitch Spence and some other guys, but it's going to be Dean Kramer Friday at 10, Charlie Morton Saturday at 10, and Tomoyuki Sugano Sunday at 4 o'clock for the Orioles weekend rotation against an A's team that's playing worse than anybody not named the Rockies right now. Honestly, the Rockies swept the Marlins this week. The A's have probably been the worst team in baseball over the past couple of weeks. The Orioles have a serious chance to get the offense going, and for this to be a 9-game winning streak when I return to you to recap the Orioles-A's series on Monday. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.